I got a comment from a two-stripe white belt who was frustrated with how long it was taking to progress in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's been a white belt for about a year, and he became frustrated with how long it's taking to get to that next rank. This is something I can sympathize with. When I was a white belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I went through two different phases. The first phase was when I was at my very first gym, and I remember really wanting to get that next rank. Wanting to get that recognition, because that's really what the stripes and the belts are in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a recognition of the hard work you're putting in. To me, when I first started out, it felt like I was putting in more effort than most other people. I was training 5 days a week, plus some judo on the weekends, and I felt like I was progressing fast, but I wasn't quite getting that recognition. It sort of felt like in the sea of all the people training, I was just getting lost amongst the crowd. And I think this commenter was sharing some feelings that were kind of similar to that. But then, as I continued to progress and I continued to train, it became less about the recognition and more about the actual sport, more about the actual skill I was gaining. And I began to let go of that need for rank, and my experience got way better. I had way more fun. And this was just due to a freedom of letting go of that need for recognition. At this time, I was starting to train judo at the judo club at my college. It was a lot more camaraderie that was happening with the martial arts. It was more about the friends I was gaining. It was about the memories I was having. And when I started to get more serious in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I was a white belt again, no longer focusing on judo, it was a freeing feeling, because at that point I'd gained a bunch of skill. It'd been about 1.5, 2 years or so. I was coming in being another fresh white belt, and it was fun because I was skilled, and the training wasn't about getting that recognition. The training was about getting the knowledge.
But you know what I like a lot more than materialistic things? Knowledge.
Being a white belt is the most freeing time in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu if you see it that way, because you can make as many mistakes as you want and there's zero expectation. As you get further along in the ranks of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there is some spoken and unspoken expectations placed upon you. When you get the blue belt, there's a lot of unspoken expectations to beat the white belts. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, when you're a blue belt, you're still going to get beat by white belts. This is just natural. Even when you're a purple belt or a brown belt, you know, there's the occasional tough white belt who might give you a hard time, but that's really a lot of unspoken pressure to be better than you were as a white belt, to hold up this expectation. But once you start progressing into that purple and brown belt, there might even be some spoken expectations. You might need to start taking some classes if the instructor is missing. You might be paired up with newer people and help show them the ropes. There's an expectation for you to welcome them into the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and train with them, drill with them, roll with them in a way that will allow them to progress and make them feel welcome. When you start competing in the late blue, early purple is when you get into those expert divisions and the rules start changing, the expectations start changing. Because when you're a white belt competing, yeah, you can put a lot of pressure on yourself and it can be a little nerve-wracking, which is honestly a little bit exciting at the same time. It's the same emotion, anxiety, excitement. They're kind of one and the same. It's the same chemicals in your body. But the pressure when it comes to competing at those early ranks is mostly on you. At the end of the day, no one's going to remember what happened in a white belt tournament. Maybe you'll record it and your buddies will talk about it for 1 or 2 times, but after that, it doesn't really matter. If you can take your focus away from wanting to get that recognition and instead put it on wanting to get that skill, you are going to have a lot more fun. You're going to be a lot more free. Really, I think that's what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu should be about. It should be about getting the skill, and the recognition will eventually come. It takes a long time to progress through the ranks in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but that's sort of on purpose because there's a lot to learn in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And the deeper you get into the ranks, the more you realize that there's more to learn. It's sort of like the Dunning-Kruger effect, where when you first start out, especially in that 1, 2-stripe, 3-stripe white belt range, you're thinking, man, I'm actually getting pretty good. I can tap out these new people and I can do whatever I want to them, especially if they've never trained before. And you feel like you're needing that blue belt because when you go home and you've been training for a year and a half, you don't want to tell your friends that, oh yeah, I'm a 2-stripe white belt. I know, I've been training this long, but it's kind of embarrassing a little bit to tell people that you're still a white belt. But that also comes with humility, because when you are a white belt for 1, 2, maybe even 3 years before you get that blue belt, the blue belt's special. I think keeping that difficulty in attaining the rank in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is important because it makes the belts more valuable. It makes them more special to you, and truly the longer it takes to get to the next belt, that just means your coach thinks you're going to be better when you're a black belt. Black belt means something different to every coach, every instructor, but it's sort of the pinnacle, the crowning achievement, the doctorate degree of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There's always going to be more to learn, but when you're a black belt, that's sort of the crowning achievement, because after you get to black belt, it's no longer about skill, it's no longer about how good your coaches think you are, it's about time. Black belts kind of get participation trophies. If they're, involved in the sport, if they're, coaching a little bit here and there, every 2 years or so, they get another stripe. And it's no longer about the skill. It's about time. And that's not as fun. So if it's taking you a long time to progress through the ranks of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, appreciate that. Because it really just means when you finally get that next stripe, when you finally get that next belt, it's going to be a lot more special. And I promise you, the further you progress in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu up in the ranks, the less they're going to matter to you.